Hi, today I have a very exciting video for you. I'll be talking about shooting 16mm film on a short film project. Specifically, I'll be talking about the pre-production steps you have to make as a DP that may differ when you shoot film compared to when you shoot digitally. There are many challenges with shooting on film, like accessibility to facilities, the cost, it's more difficult, there's no playback, and also the limit in takes. But for me, there are equally as many rewards. The image quality, the look and feel, the intimate audience connection. So in this video, hopefully I'll clear up some of those misconceptions about film and prepare you as best you can for your upcoming film projects. You can also help support my short film, but more on that later. Pre-production is always important in the film industry. It helps get everybody on the same page about the project and create a narrative, a story, and a look that everyone is happy with, especially the director. But we'll be talking about this from the role of a DP, which is my role on my next short film. Film is expensive and finite, so it's important to have a clear pre-production plan to help you get the results on set that you want effectively and without wasting too much money. Also, it's a good practice for when you shoot digitally to know what you're doing. In terms of pre-production steps for a DOP, there are various things that you have to do, both technical and more creative. But it all starts with breaking down the script with the director to figure out a look and feel and a style for the film. The main thing here is to try and get to a point where you understand what the director is looking for, and so that you can help convey those messages with the visuals. Making mood boards and visual atmosphere boards help you to get onto the same page as the director about the look and feel of the final film. The way I did this was in Millernote, so I started by using their templates to create boards, and I drag and dropped lots of reference images from ShotDeck, which I used to try and get a feel for the movie and to understand what the director wanted. This is great because I can just show the director and see if this is exactly what they want or if they want something else, and I can easily replace the images with new ones to really narrow it down. After these more creative discussions, it gets a lot more technical for me. I start making storyboards of how we're going to turn these visual ideas and the script into single shots and into a flowing film. Things like lighting plans, shot lists, and storyboards are all things you can do in Millernote, but because I can't draw, I use ShotDeck for reference imagery to try and get the sort of composition and the blocking that I'm looking for without necessarily using the look and feel that I had before, because I'm just trying to show the director how I imagine these scenes to be composed and to be shot. Obviously, if you can draw, it always helps. Then comes a lot of technical planning that is different from digital cinema. For example, film costs, developing costs, scanning costs, all of this on top of the usual equipment rental rates. Oh my god, it's recording my MacBook audio. So now we're shooting on my Rode mic. There are many different ways of working this out. The easiest is to have one lab that does the processing and scanning and to find the price of film and add all that together. However, to make life hard, but to maybe save some money, one can shop around for both processing and scanning and film. For example, for processing and scanning, there is a website where Kodak lists most, if not all, the motion picture labs in the world. So what I did was I sent emails out to all the different companies asking for a rate for developing and scanning 600 meters of Vision 3 material in 2K ProRes. This was the estimated amount of material based on the script, and the scanning resolution and format is relatively standardized and can be well compared between all services. Since then, we've had companies willing to support us in our short film, but this is where you need to find the best solution for you and your production, which may not always be the cheapest one out there. There is also a way to save film, which I'll talk about later. Making this cost breakdown as early as possible helps you make sure that you have the material and the processing and scanning already allocated for, so that when you get to production, you don't have these costs on top. There are quite a few different choices for 16mm film stocks. Kodak has their famous Vision 3 color negative line, which is a highly flexible film stock which comes in various versions. 50D for daylight shooting outside and is the most fine-grained. 200T, which is the one we chose for our production, which is fine-grained with 200 ISO, but is made for artificial tungsten lighting. 250D, a popular medium-speed, medium-grain film for daylight balanced light. And 500T, a high-speed, high-grain film for artificial tungsten lighting. There is also Etrichrome 100 reversal stock, a beautifully fine-grained reversal stock with incredible colors, but less latitude than the Vision 3 negative films. Then there is black and white reversal Tri-X, and black and white negative XX, both of which I would love to use, but haven't had the chance to do so yet. Then there is sometimes old Fuji stock laying around. This will be expired. And original Wolfen film. There's a black and white and a color film available, but seemingly not reliably, because I couldn't get a roll of either of them to test them out. A few other oddities exist here and there, but I have no experience shooting these ones. Now, when choosing film stock, there are a few great resources. A great tool for this is the Kodak app, where you can calculate runtime based on frames per second and format to work out how much stock you need. A lot of your choices come down to the previous determination of the look and feel, which you've done with the director. Finding a style helps inform your film choice. For example, if it's a light, clean and airy feeling, then maybe the 50D. For low light, gritty scenes, 500T or maybe black and white. References can be found on YouTube and especially on Kodak Shoot Film's Instagram, where all the information to each shoot is listed, including camera, lens, and film stocks. I also have a few tips to save money on film stock. Look for expired film. The risk obviously is that you have higher grain and color shifts, but maybe you don't mind that. Or maybe you can try and source some short ends or recanned film that is left over from larger productions, which is still relatively fresh. But if you're on a budget and the visual style allows for some flexibility, then go for it and save some money. We chose 200T for its fine grain but higher speed, which we need for shooting interiors. We chose 200T over 250D because it's slightly finer grain, but also because the lighting package we will be using are tungsten fixtures. Again, more on this later. Choosing a 60mm camera is relatively easy. Choose what you can get your hands on. It's not that easy nowadays, so find what you can get. You could buy a cheap 60mm camera like a Krasnogorsk 3, which is a wind-up camera, or a Bolex, which have risen in price significantly, both of them recently. And both have their issues, but you can relatively reliably find them used, and if you're looking to buy one instead of renting, this might be the better option. Because they're wind-up cameras, they don't do sync sound, so they drift a little bit in their speed, so you can take sound but it won't be synchronized and you'll have a hard time syncing it up. But also the cameras themselves are louder when they're running, so it might not be suitable for shooting dialogue scenes with somebody directly in front of the camera. But they're relatively small, they are easy to work with, they don't require a lot of support gear, so there's plenty of benefits to those ones as well. If you want to use a camera with longer film loads or that can shoot sync sound, then things like the Arri, the Arton, the Eclair are also good options. These are larger cameras, require larger support gear, and are definitely more expensive to buy and can be rented, but the rental prices are, depending on where you live, not that affordable. There's also the Arriflex 416, which is essentially the highest end 16mm camera you can buy or rent, but it's extremely expensive because it was built by Arri as the last 60mm camera and is still in service in some of their rental branches. Comparatively, the Arri SR series is more affordable to buy and more affordable to rent, but it's definitely got some downsides compared to the 416, but is one of the best 16mm systems you can use. The differences between the higher end cameras are negligible at best because of the huge amount of frame rates available on all of the high end cameras, the sync sound, the crystal sync motors, the larger film loads. It really depends on lenses and film stock choice at that point. To know exactly what you need, you should do your own research and find out what needs your project has and see which cameras fit those needs the best. Things to consider are if you want to shoot sound. If you want to shoot sound, you need a sync sound camera that is quiet enough to shoot dialogue scenes with. If you want to shoot just a music video, then a 16mm Bolex or Krasnogorsk 3 will do fine. But also, things to consider with the electronic cameras is the availability of batteries. Not all the batteries are the same ones that you use nowadays. Most cameras have some sort of conversions for V-mounts, which are expensive if you have to buy them. But if you're taking a camera from a rental house, then usually the kit will have it included. So that's a benefit of renting them. You have a ready-to-go set almost all the time. It is super important to get your film gear checked, or at least check it yourself before you start shooting. Nothing worse than turning up to set with a camera that is dead or dies on you because of an issue that you could have seen or resolved beforehand. best to take a few days or a few weeks to shoot some film, to test in different environments, just to make sure the camera is working as you know it should and as you expect it to. I made the decision to go to ARRI Rental here in Berlin so that I could get my camera checked out well in advance of the shoot to make sure that there are no issues that may arise during shooting. The people there are extremely kind and put my camera on the collimator to set the camera up correctly, set up the correct tolerances before I shot a few sharpness test charts, and also used a gate steadiness tool to check how the camera performs. I got this film developed and scanned thanks to a friend of mine, and now I am absolutely confident that the camera is working as it should. Choosing lenses is a fundamental choice in the visual style of your film. If you want the film to be more close up and personal, you need to get a closer lens. If you want it to be from a more observational standpoint, you need to get a wider lens to be able to portray these things correctly. Another thing to keep in mind is the crop factor on Super 16 if you're shooting Super 16, which is 2.88. So you need to make sure your lenses show the field of view that you want to. Obviously, a lens that is 25mm is always 25mm, but the field of view differs. For our film, I decided to go with some Zeiss primes. I was thinking of using a Tokina 11 to 20mm because of the pretty good focal lengths for Super 16 that lens has, but there are a few factors. Firstly, the lens is slow at t2.9. I've heard some mixed things about the image quality on Super 16 because of the smaller sensor size and maybe not being able to resolve it so well, but mainly because that would have cost extra money on top to rent, whereas I was able to pick up for myself some Zeiss primes that I will be able to use on the shoot. Another thing is, I love Zeiss. I've loved all the Zeiss glass I've ever used, be that in still photography, in video, modern Zeiss Sony glass for video, the old vintage primes for photography, or using those vintage primes for video. I really love the look, so I decided that if I have the access to the Zeiss primes, I'm going to take them. I love the Zeiss look of the lenses and the speed at t1.3, and the look is definitely sharp enough in my opinion for Super 16, and obviously works well on a digital sensor as well. We will be shooting on a 16mm lens and a 25mm lens, which will hopefully give us a good selection of field of views, so sort of a normal and a telephoto. We're also pairing that with a borrowed 12mm for the wide side, which is a slightly newer version of the Zeiss prime lenses for Super 16, but that will allow us to have a relatively even look between the lenses and still have essentially everything sorted out for, so wide, medium and far. Lens testing is crucial. You don't have to do it yourself, but seeing the way lenses render scenes, maybe that's on ShotDeck, on YouTube, movies or forums, they allow you to make an informed decision on what lenses you want to use. This is really about personal preference and the continuation of the informed visual style. Lighting for 16mm film is considerably different than lighting for digital because you have the fixed ISO, you need lots of light, and also the film loves extra light, so you're always looking to have a little bit more overexposure than underexposure, meaning you're always fighting the light. When putting together a lighting plan, your previous decisions will make this a lot easier because you know which lenses to shoot on, how fast they are, you know which film stock to shoot on, which ISO that has. Then all you need to do is use something like the ARRI Photometrics app to find out which fixtures have which output and which ones you need. The same exists for aperture lights. You can use their app to find out which of their fixtures have which settings and which outputs to make exact diagrams and exact planning for your lighting package. This means you'll be perfectly prepared on set for which lights to use when, and you won't have to have an excess or too little lights available on set. The challenge we faced here was I wanted to have high color accuracy on a low budget. LEDs are still relatively expensive to rent, and cheap LEDs are not particularly color accurate, especially older ones. As tungsten lights are about 10% of the cost of an LED fixture per day, I decided to opt for a larger, more versatile tungsten lighting package than a smaller, more limited LED package. Thank you so much for making it this far through the video. Hopefully you've learned some things and you are feeling a bit more prepared for your own short films, or maybe you feel a little bit less worried about wanting to shoot on film and what to do. These are the things that I've learned planning my recent 16mm short film and also other film projects in the past. If you would like to support our short film, the links are in the description to a PayPal fundraiser and maybe another fundraiser where you can help us out and you can support us directly, because this film is all self-funded. We would appreciate any and all support that you can give us. If you're interested in a continuation of this video, then let me know, because I will be hopefully making a on-set video where I will share the experience of shooting film on set and also in the pre-production phase. These might be 2 separate videos that you can look out for in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something. If you've got any questions about the process, or if you want to have any of my links, I will leave them down below or write me a message in the comments.